Hello. I'm going to say weird personal stuff as usual. If you don't want to hear weird personal stuff, you shouldn't watch my thing here. Uh, what do I have to say? I'm just journaling. Anyway, there's been a change of events in my world. My dad is incapacitated. He broke his leg yesterday. He's like 85, and so he's going to need help. So it's Saturday. My whole routine is out of whack. It's probably just going to be like a job. Like I'm probably just going to help my dad and stuff. So I have no life. I don't know. I think I'm just going to do stuff like this. I'm just going to sort of play around more and uh, go to jiu-jitsu, play games on my phone, run the dogs. I go running. I found out I can run with the dogs and I can play Simon at the same time, which is really irresponsible. But nobody even goes outside anymore. So even though it's like I'm running in the middle of the street playing Simon with two dogs attached to my waist, it's relatively safe because nobody even is like outside anymore. But it's probably stupid. Anyway, I always have these like little ideas that are ruminating on the back burner of my brain, and so I'm trying to like say them in some manner, but really I have nothing to say. This is the main point of what's been percolating on my brain for the last since last night. First of all, I've got this Google News. Google News caters to my Google News basically analyzes the things that I'm doing on my YouTube and gives me news related to, like, the news now actually kind of talks to you in the sense that it goes like, oh, I noticed you do these things, and it gives you like data based news. Or anyway, one of the things it says that like people don't like unsolicited advice, and they say that that's like a generational thing. Like they say that Gen Z gets irritated when older generations like baby boomers and maybe Gen X give unsolicited advice. So I'm not trying to give unsolicited advice. But on the flip side, I'm not giving unsolicited, but on the flip side of that, I feel like, well, this is still like my channel, so I can still like say what I want. If somebody doesn't want to watch, I'm not giving unsolicited advice. But another thing I think though too is like sometimes this whole article, nobody's listening, right? But this article said all this stuff about like these are things that Gen Z people don't like boomer people doing because they're like outdated. But I was thinking like some of those are like good conventions, and sometimes I think like new generations, they lose like good stuff. Like they're probably missing out on like the wonders of giving unsolicited advice. I think that's probably true. I think if you went back to like the 1800s, they're like, dude, there's a bunch of things those generations did that were great that we lost, that like I wish we still did shit like that. What's the point? Can you substantiate that? First of all, let's tell that. That's what I think. It's like, I think like people, they used to, back in, nobody cares, but just a record, when I was a kid, I vaguely remember people from the great generation that were alive during World War II. We had a neighbor who actually stormed the beaches of Normandy. I didn't know that until he was much older, but like he was a great like dinner table guy. Like he knew how to do like little magic tricks at the dinner table. He knew how to be good company at a dinner table, because that's a lot of what people did back in like the 50s. And now I think like, dude, I wish they'd bring that back. I bet you like the great generation had all these like things that they did. I was like, dude, I wish that was lost. Like I wish people still did that. What's the point? You know, even though it tends to be that generations tend to progress, don't you think that for sure there's a lot of conventions and things that previous generations that really were arguably way better ways of life, like certain conventions and things that people did maybe in like the late 1800s made life way better, and they were lost. There's a lot of lost arts that disappear with new generations, that as things get like replaced by technology and stuff like that. Is that for sure true? Yes or no? And if so, could you give like 3 examples?
Yes, it's definitely possible that some conventions...
Says, yeah, people used to go out in nature more. Yeah, that's something, like they had this movie called The Great Outdoors, and there was this old dad who was trying to say like, dude, we used to like go hang out on the lake and stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, people don't really do that anymore. We used to like build tree houses. We used to, appreciation for craftsmanship and local production. They used to have like Boy Scouts where they teach you how to like tie knots and like build fires and stuff. And that stuff was probably kind of cool. Community and social interaction in the late 1800s. Community. That's what I remember is basically, even in my limited lifetime, I can remember that like when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, there were people who grew up in the 50s the great generation people, the people who fought in World War II, they really were noticeably like there was an art to just being good company at a dinner table and like doing little parlor tricks and going like, oh look, I got this thing behind your ear, oh, and they knew how to do shit like that. It's like, oh, like it seems like that's a lost art. Anyway, get to the point, Sean. Anyway, probably no one's watching my thing. But this is the little thing that's percolating on my brain, and I'm not trying to do it as unsolicited advice, but I think it's just probably a valuable thing for any human. It's just that like at 44 years old, I really feel like there's a thing where like that guy, I think there's a thing that will happen in a lot of people's lives when they get older. They'll realize that person that they listen to or whatever, that was just a guy. I think that's probably a really common thing, is that like in this time when people were going to like World War One and people were like, come on, like we're going to World War One, that's what we're doing. That guy who's saying like, that's what we're doing, like that's good, like we should do it. And you go, okay, sir. That guy's just a guy. That's. I think that people eventually realize, oh, that was just a guy talking, and like, you could be the guy talking also. That's my general theory. Is I think a lot of people they waste a lot of time looking at some person who basically was just a guy talking, when really they could have just been the guy talking themselves. And like, dude, why was I listening to this guy? He was just a guy talking. He probably didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. And I think that's particularly true in this time now with like ChatGPT. And so probably no one's watching, but I think really like probably the only useful thing one of the most useful things I could say to myself or anybody else is that there's going to be this thing called computer vision in the near future. You can ask ChatGPT this. Computer vision is basically going to look at whatever people are doing, and it's going to say, oh, here's like here's 10 things you should do right there. Here's 10 things that like are the best methods for that thing you're doing. And I know that like people who are like 20 or just anybody in general, I know that like just by going to jiu-jitsu, you'd think there'd be a lot of people who would just know like basic things about jiu-jitsu, but they don't. And so right now there's this tool called like ChatGPT. There's ChatGPT, which basically can do that, but you have to push a button. You just have to say like, hey, I'm doing this activity. Pretty soon ChatGPT and like glasses that are connected to ChatGPT, they're gonna watch what you're doing and they're gonna just tell you. They're gonna say, oh, you're doing this thing, here's like a bunch of things that you could do better there. They'll give you like tips, and a lot of those are like wheels. It's like they're reinventing the wheel type thing. This is particularly true for like skill-based stuff like jiu-jitsu, painting, probably anything that involves like a skill, like hunting or just running. Anything that's a skill. There's like things where people just kind of stumble around in the dark for like 10 years and they're like, oh, like triangle choke. They didn't know what they didn't know. And so in the near future, probably, I don't know, within the next 10 years, they're going to have this thing that just looks at whatever you're doing and says, oh, here's like 10 things you should probably know about that thing that will really help. And what's your point, Sean? Just in the meantime, people just have to ask they have to ask ChatGPT. And so my theory is that like, if I was a teacher, I'm not a teacher, but if I was a teacher, one of the first things I would say to people is like, anything you want to know is like available through ChatGPT, YouTube, and Reddit, way better than what I can tell you. And also, if people aren't using like ChatGPT now, they're gonna use it in the future because it's just gonna talk to people. It's just gonna do the same thing. Like I think it's gonna do that. It's gonna basically say like, hey, I noticed you're doing this thing. Here's like 10 things that can make that thing go better. Some of them might be useful. And so now you just have to like push a button to do that. But in the future, it'll just do it for you. It'll just say like, oh, it'll just watch what you're doing and say, psst, like, here's what you should do when you're doing jiu-jitsu, and that part where you're doing that thing. I think it's mostly for like skill-based stuff. What's the point, John? That's it. That's my thoughts. I'm not trying to give unsolicited advice, but I'm just thinking like, dude, like I wish I knew that when I was 20. I wish I knew when I was 20 that a lot of these things, there's like systems. There's systems that people are caught up in, and that system doesn't really care about you. And it seems better to like take your destiny into your own hands, not just be like guided by some guy who's like, this guy's like my parent, he's gonna show me something. No, be like, if I just ask myself, like if I was trying to do jiu-jitsu and I just said every day I should say, what problem did I run into? And then like, what's a solution to that problem? And just take the learning into my own hands rather than being guided by some, teacher who probably doesn't give a shit about my career or something like that. That's one thing I think Also, I think a lot of the world's really going to change probably with like artificial intelligence. There could be like universal basic income, and machines are going to replace a lot of jobs. That's kind of what I'm counting on. I'm thinking like, oh, I don't have to get a job. Like machines are going to do the work soon. They'll have universal basic income, but that might not happen. But for sure, it just seems like anything you want to do, if you just ask like ChatGPT, like what are the basics of that thing, and just I think if myself included, if I had a habit of just basically anytime I run into some problem, just being like, oh, like how do I deal with that problem, and just basically going to Reddit and asking, like Reddit, if I want to learn conversation, I should really just go to Reddit conversation every day and say, oh, I wish I knew how to like have a conversation go longer. What are like some ways that I can have a conversation go longer and not feel annoying? They'll like tell me that, and I should really just have a habit of doing that like every day. But I think again, I think in the future, ChatGPT will just do that for people. It'll say, "Oh, I noticed you're doing this thing. Here's like some things that you might try next time to have that thing go better." And so, I think there's my theory is that there's a little window of time now when some people know about like ChatGPT and Reddit and YouTube, and if they use those, they could have like a big advantage in a lot of these skill-based things, because it seems like at least at my jiu-jitsu gym, there's just a lot of people who don't know about like ChatGPT, or they don't like have a habit of just regularly thinking like, oh, like I ran into this thing, what could I do? And then they'll find something, oh dude, that's like so useful. And so that's my theory. My theory is that like that's going to be like an automatic thing in the future, but for now people could really do the same thing, but they just have to push a button regularly and say like, how do I do this thing? And then like YouTube shorts can show how to do it. Anyway, I feel like that's enough. Nobody takes unsolicited advice anyways, and I know it's annoying. Anyway, so now I did my useful thing. Now I'm just gonna, I tried to be useful, but why don't you just help yourself, Sean? Why don't you do you? Yeah, I'm constantly fascinated with this idea, is sometimes I think that, I don't know, I'm really kind of like, preoccupied with assertions of superiority and how those work between people. And so that's something I'm sort of like noticing in like, when I go to jiu-jitsu, sometimes I'll be like, oh, I could like really help this person out, and I try to say these things, and then if I do that, sometimes I never see the guy again. And sometimes I think some of life is like that. Like sometimes I think like if somebody positions themselves as like, I'm the teacher guy, the other person feels like, oh, like tell me, that's like not good. And sometimes I think it's almost better, like if I was dealing with somebody at jiu-jitsu and they were a new person, I'd be like, you tell me what to do. And then they'd feel like, oh, like I think just sometimes playing that role can be like really good for you in terms of like empowerment or something. What's your point? I think that's kind of why I do this like YouTube thing, is I like the role playing. I'm playing a role. I can't find a role in society. So if I just pretend I'm some guy on here, what's your point? I don't know, it's fucking weird. But anyway, I think a good way to talk on this thing would just be to continually pretend that I'm just talking to myself. I should lead myself. I should just say like, Sean, you probably, a lot of times you really are just talking to yourself. And so you should just pretend that you're your only audience. What would you say to you? What would you say to you now? I would say just try to get laid. Try to get laid. Just pussy is fucking great. Pussy with no condom, and just not thinking about the future is just, man, I really miss being irresponsible and 30 and getting naked with some pretty woman who thought I was cute and let me put my dick in her pussy with no condom. Just saying that gives me like endorphins, and I had no idea that would become so I had no idea how many of those pussies would close forever after the age of 40. And so what's my point? Let's just say I should be let's just say I'm just talking to myself. I'm saying, Sean, you should just try to get laid now. Sean, do it now. But I don't know, part of me is just like it's so much work for so little options. But man, what's the point? Just sexy pussy is pretty great. I wonder if generations have changed. I don't want to talk like a old person wondering about younger generations, but I wonder if just in the last like 10 or 20 years, women really are like way more guarded. Maybe there's some of that. It seems like I could get laid in my early 30s, but maybe like things have changed in the last decade because everybody hears how everybody thinks. Maybe there's like a battle between the sexes now where women are like, you got to get what you're worth. You can't just be, I would imagine that, like, what's the point? I don't know. Let's just leave it at, like, I don't know. But I would imagine that on the internet, there's a lot of men like Andrew Tate who are saying, like, dude, what you got to do is you got to do this. And they're trying to get pussy with no strings attached. And then I bet on the female side, there's a lot of females who are saying, like, what you got to do, girl, is you got to, like, and I would imagine their dialogue is something along the lines of, like, I would imagine, I don't really know, but I would imagine the female strategy, some female strategies might include getting what you want out of men and not getting used. And I would imagine the male strategy is getting what they want and not getting used. And I would imagine for a lot of females, they want stuff that amounts to time and money. That's, I don't know. I'm not trying to be cynical. I don't want to be a misogynist. But when I go to dating sites, it seems like they want, like, they want a relationship, which they mean, like, they want, like, emotional connection, I guess. But it just seems like what that, in my mind, what that amounts to is an investment of a lot of time and money. And so it just seems like, what's your point, Sean? I don't know. I maybe this is just broadly generalizing. I would imagine there's a common battle between the sexes where men are going to try to get what they want without it costing a lot of time and money. And then women are going to try to get time and money without it costing them a lot of feeling used. I don't know. Let's just leave it as I don't know. You can just ask. There's data on these things. Is there data to substantiate that there's like a battle between the sexes that probably has been around for a lot of human history, but maybe has been amplified in the time of social media, which is that men probably want sexual gratification without it costing a lot of time and money and commitment and loss of freedom. And then women want a friend, or they want help, or they want something that translates to time and money from a man in exchange for access to their sexuality. Could that be said to be true, even though it sounds kind of cringy?
Yes, there's a long-standing debate about differing expectations and desires within romantic relationships, particularly regarding the balance of effort, commitment, and emotional versus physical intimacy.
Anyway, what's your point? I don't know, it's just weird. But I definitely noticed that, like, what do you notice, Sean? I don't know, I just noticed different things. It's weird being 44 because I sort of am basically in the old person category, and I see these other old people, I'm like, oh, like, people just get old. And then people just get old and people die. And that's weird. It's weird. What's the point? I don't know. I keep saying this, but probably no one's watching this. But I really think there's a phenomenon that probably happens in a lot of people's lives, which basically amounts to the realization that, like, that was just a guy talking. I think that probably has happened throughout human history. Is some person? I think this has happened many times throughout millions and billions of people have had some moment in their older years as a person where, like, that was just a guy, that dad or that leader or that boss or that person I looked up to. Like, I look up to Jocko. I'm sure there will be some point when I'm like 50 or 60 and I'll be like, that was just a guy. Like, why was I so impressed with him? He was just saying some shit. I think sometimes people, younger people, me compared to Jocko, they're parked in front of some guy by happenstance and the guy's talking and they think, I guess he's the guy who's talking, and like, he knows some stuff. But really, I think there's a realization when people go, it's like, oh, he was just a guy talking. Like, I could have been the guy talking to myself. I could have like, just, like, why was I letting some other person say, like, this is how things are, or this is how, like, you should do stuff. I think that will be a thing with, like, I could be wrong, but I keep saying this over and over. I think that will be a thing with artificial intelligence. I think there will be some sort of artificial intelligent companions that will somewhat replace that guy or that girl. And so they won't have that. They'll be like, they'll have some artificial intelligent companion that will say, dude, that person you're listening to, they're just a guy. Like, they're just talking. I don't know why they're talking. You could be the one talking to yourself. You could be, but that person, he doesn't he's not like a guru, or he doesn't he's doing his things for his own reasons, but like you are a different person than him, and you might have some different things that you want to do, and whatever you want to do, the answers are all on ChatGPT. Let's just first, I want to ask if that's a thing. Is there a pattern in like human history where a lot of times if people get older, they have this realization that that was just a guy, that parent, that teacher, that person that they looked up to, that they thought was like some guru guy, they realize, oh, that was just some guy, and they weren't even really as smart as I thought, and really they didn't do a lot of things right, and I was incorrect by not sort of thinking for myself to some degree. Maybe they had some ideas that I agreed with, but like they were really just a guy who was not necessarily any better at choosing what I should or shouldn't do than myself. Do you think that's like a really common thing for people to eventually feel as they proceed through life? Yes or no?
Yes, it's a very common experience for people to reevaluate their perceptions of authority figures as they mature. Here's why.
Yeah, so that's I think that's a really common thing. Is like when I was 20, there were a lot of people who I thought like, oh, this guy's like, some of their things were useful, but some of it was just like, oh, he was just a guy just saying stuff. He wasn't like the arbitrator of truth, or he wasn't like, he didn't know everything. And meanwhile, I think that's going to become really clear with the internet. I think, like, again, I keep saying this over and over, but I'm pretty sure that in the near future, they're going to have this thing. ChatGPT is going to become some sort of like AI companion, because they're going to have this thing called computer vision, which is it's going to listen to and watch what you're doing if you want, and it'll basically siphon out bullshit. Like if somebody's just pontificating about something that's not based with evidence, the thing's going to say, psst, that thing that guy said is not totally true based on evidence. And then it's going to notice what people are doing, and it's going to say, psst, like, here's like a bunch of things you could do there that definitely work better. And in the meantime, I think there's a lot of things where people are just kind of stumbling around in the dark. And I keep saying that, but I think no one's watching, right? But I really think that's like probably one of the most useful things I could say. I feel like I should be talking. I know that's definitely true in my jiu-jitsu gym. I see this jiu-jitsu gym. I see these people who are young people and old people who go to this they go to this jiu-jitsu gym every day, and they think the teacher's just doing this sort of like, I mean, he needs a job. And I've seen this a lot, like when I was in college. The guy needs a job, and he doesn't really care if he's more concerned with his job, and everybody is, I think. They're more concerned with their life than they are with the students. They're doing their job, but they're like, I don't have to do more than I'm doing necessarily. Like, why should I? You don't really care about me. Like, I'm getting paid. Why should I, go way beyond what I have to do? I'm not getting paid that much. And so what's the point? I just see that. I've seen that over and over since college. And then I really like my jiu-jitsu. I really like my jiu-jitsu teacher. And also my jiu-jitsu teacher probably assumes that like people are going to investigate things on their own. But I've seen that a lot, is I see people who go over and over and over to this building. They're paying a lot to go to this jiu-jitsu gym. And they're just thinking that they're just kind of blindly thinking that this other person's going to like lead them to like their thing. And they don't realize that like they have access to way better teachers. And if they just had a habit of every day asking like, what problem did I encounter yesterday? And then like, what are some of the best methods that I might use to deal with that problem or situation? That could be so much better than any particular teacher. They're not like a guru, but the internet like is better than. Internet is like a portal to like all the best teachers. And so I just think that seems like a really outdated thing, is like going to some teacher as though that teacher is just, he doesn't compete with the teachers that you have instant access to just with YouTube, Reddit, and Google. And so I just wonder, like, it just seems like, I think I'm going to shut up a second. I keep saying the same shit over and over. But I think in the future, they're going to have this thing called computer vision that's going to look at any skill or anything that you're doing, and it's going to say, here's like 10 things you could do right there that are way better. Here's like some basic things that like, if you know it, it'll make you way better at that thing. And you'll eventually learn those things anyway. And so and so I think you could just, before they come out with that computer vision thing, you could just do that on ChatGPT. You could just say like, what are like the 10 most basic fundamentals of jiu-jitsu that if I wanted to get good at jiu-jitsu, I should definitely learn and practice, because if I ever am good at jiu-jitsu, I'm inevitably going to be doing these things regularly, and in order to compete, I'll have to do them, like I'll have to know how to do them, and they're basically like wheels. Like I'm not going to reinvent the 10 different wheels of this skill or discipline or hobby, and so I should just kind of know them as soon as possible. Like if you had computer vision in the future that was analyzing that I was doing jiu-jitsu, what are like 10 things that you'd say you should like practice these things, you should learn these things?
You're right. Jiu-jitsu.
Now, I don't know. I'm not like a jiu-jitsu expert, but I think even still, just like I think it would say like 10 things, but just like a lot of these things, it seems like people don't need all of them. Like it says like bridging and shrimping. Shrimping, I just heard a professional jiu-jitsu guy who's like he's like a world-renowned jiu-jitsu guy. He says shrimping isn't even really like that important. Like you barely even use shrimping. He says, oh, everybody stresses shrimping, but he's like, I barely even use shrimping. I noticed that too. Like sometimes there's kind of like these things that people think of as like tried and true things, but most of them are good. But that's kind of what I think is like, that's my theory. My theory is that like they're going to have ChatGPT with computer vision. ChatGPT really is just a portal to the best stuff on the internet. It's not like ChatGPT. And anyway, let's get to the point, Sean. I think it's going to do that. I think it's going to look at what people are doing, and it's going to say, oh, here's 10 things that like are pretty good for that thing that you'll probably eventually use some of them. You might use like 5 or 6 of them for sure, but then like there's going to be like 3 of them that you're like, oh, I don't even need that. And so what's the point? I don't know. That's what I think. What's the point? So posture, yeah, for sure. Like posture is like, oh, like when I was doing jiu-jitsu, when I figured out base and posture, those are like real fucking helpful. Is like, nobody's listening, right? I'm just pontificating. I'm just waiting for my dad's wheeling around. I think today basically I'm just gonna help my dad, because my dad broke his leg, and so I have to learn how to my new job for a lot of my life, it might just be like helping my dad. He might be fine in a few weeks though. Anyway, get to the point. Just base and posture is like, oh, like base and posture is like really fucking great. Base and posture basically is the idea of in jiu-jitsu. As a broad simplification in jiu-jitsu, if you're gonna knock somebody down, you are going to either disrupt their base or topple their posture, or a combination of the two. That's like a lot of jiu-jitsu. But if you just think about, they have their waist, everything above their waist, you want to get that thing toppled over. You want to pull the stuff that's above their waist over, or you want to push the stuff that's under their waist under them. If you just think about that, as soon as I just figured that out in jiu-jitsu, I could just do that. If I was doing like kneeling jiu-jitsu, I could just think, any way you can, get their feet to go out from under them. Like you can push out their feet, you could pull out their feet, you could pull them sideways. Somehow or another, if you push out somebody's like lower half of their body, they'll fall down. And if you take their upper body, same thing. You could put it sideways, you could put it backward, you could put it forward. But if you take their upper body and tip it over, they're gonna fall down. And so if you can do both of those, they'll fall down even more. And so what's the point, Sean? Just like, it's like, oh dude, that's like so helpful. And meanwhile, the weird thing is like, the teachers in these classes, they'll go years without even telling people that. Like the teacher's just going to have this like ceremonial thing where they're going blah, 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 blah. And the other day, like I met this girl, and and it's like, dude, like they don't know. Like what's the point? I don't know. I'm going to shut up in a second. I'm getting all like amped up, but like I spent so much time in college just basically listening to these people just going blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, these guys are going to like guide me the way. They're just pontificating. And so what's the point? I'm the same thing. So that's the gist of what I'm trying to say. Is if somebody's watching me right now, I'm just some guy talking, and like I think people just they go through life, and then when they're like 40 or 50, like, dude, that was just some guy talking. Like I should have like taken the questioning into my own hands on the internet and just looked up like what are the best things to do in this. I think like that's what I want to do, like from here on with like a lot of skills, is just basically think like, what problem did I encounter? What are some ways that are good to do that? And then like, if I just go to YouTube and look at some of the best teachers, or ask Reddit, what are some of the best ways I can try to deal with this problem? There's like some tried and true things that like I could find without waiting for some like teacher to like guide me there. And so what's the point? That's my general point of this this video, which probably no one is going to watch, is that I think that for sure a lot of humans, they're going to proceed through life, and there's going to be these various moments when they get to be like 50 or 60, and they're going to be like, dude, that was just some guy talking. This is just and like, why did I look up to him? Why did I listen to that guy? And I think that happens in all sorts of shit. And then I also think in the next 5 years, there's going to be this thing called computer vision, which is going to be attached to something like ChatGPT, and it's going to look at whatever people are doing, and it's going to say, oh, here's like a bunch of things you could do there that would really work well. And so people should like me included, should get hip to that. Right now, you can still kind of do the same thing, but you just have to push a button. You have to basically say like, I'm doing this thing, whatever I'm doing through my day, my different activities, conversation, jujitsu, illustration. What are like 10 basic things that I should practice that might make me better at that thing? And then like ChatGPT's still, I won't use all of them, but for sure some of them are going to be like, oh, like I was going to learn that eventually. And so what's my point? Yeah, I think like basically ChatGPT, YouTube, and Reddit are way better teachers than one individual dude. And I just think a lot of people are still stuck in some building listening to this one individual dude who's like never going to tell them like, dude, the internet gives you connection to the best teachers in this thing. They know way more shit than me as an individual. And so what's my point? That's it. That's just my message. No one's watching, but dude, don't piss off that teacher, don't piss off that parent, don't piss off that boss, but don't just get stuck on them like they're going to guide you to your future. You got to take your fucking future in your own hands, and just, if you just had a habit every day of thinking like, what problem did I encounter? What's some methods to get around that? And then like, what are the fundamentals of that thing that I do? I think there's probably like 5 different things that I do regularly, that there's just a bunch of fundamentals that if I just ask the thing, like even just basic shit like running, like when I go running, there's a bunch of like basics of running that could make my running way better. And I'm just going to do it badly for like years. And then eventually I'll be like, oh, like posture, like if I strike the ground underneath me, or if I use a heart rate monitor, like, oh, that makes it so much better. I think that people just, they don't know what they don't know. But the fucking internet knows, and pretty soon the internet's just going to have computer vision, and it's just going to tell them that shit. And so, but in the meantime, people just have to like push a few buttons to do the same thing. By basically saying, I'm doing this thing, what are some things that might help me with that thing that the professionals use, or something like that. And then like every day, if the people just, okay, so anyway, that's it. Okay, so just relax, Sean. Everything's fine. But yeah, what's the point? Yeah, just I think that happens though. I think that there's just a lot of things where I keep talking about the same thing over and over. I got to run my dogs in a second. Why don't you just do you, Sean? Do you? Quit trying to like be people's savior or some shit. I'm not trying to be a savior. I noticed that my jiu-jitsu thing. I always do this thing where it's like I have to like I try to like oh, I'm really gonna like help you out, and they're like, oh, like thank you, but like really everybody has access to these things now. What's your point, Sean? Anyway, but I just want to say that like I think that's true in World War One. In World War One, I think there was things where there was some guy who said, come on, we're going to the Western Front, and there was some like guy yelling at him, and there's somebody's like, that's what people do, they go to the Western Front. And then they just did it, and there was some guy, and they were thinking like, are you sure? Is this really the best thing for us to do? We're just supposed to run into machine gun fire? And like, yes, that's what we're doing. And then they're like, oh, that was just some guy who like didn't give a shit about me, and they just needed bodies. And then they're like, dude, that was just some guy talking. And it's like, yeah, it was just some guy talking. Like, you probably should have just taken your destiny into your own hand. What's the point? I'm gonna ask that one more time. I'll just say like, so for sure, just based on like observations of different humans throughout life, is there a really common pattern where a lot of times people, they proceed through life, and then at some time towards maybe the end of their life, they realize that was just a guy, that was just some guy talking, and I should have kind of questioned, or at least thought about things for myself rather than just blindly listen to that guy as though he was like the arbitrator of truth or some guru. And they're like, maybe that guy didn't know everything. Maybe that guy didn't give a shit about me, and he was just pontificating for his own reasons. Don't you think that's a really common like thought for people at different points in their life, particularly when they get older?
Yes, it's a very common experience for people.
All right, so just for the record, I'm just a guy talking also. That's, in case that's not obvious, just I'm just some guy talking. You could just talk also and your things would be just as valid potentially. But really nowadays with ChatGPT, the internet is like, it's the collection of all the guys, and particularly the most successful and the guys who have found the most useful things. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to say. It's just like, I think the internet, I think my theory, I could be wrong, but my theory is that just any dissemination of information in terms of like, oh, here's how you do this thing, will probably become almost sort of like silly for humans to do between humans, because there probably is going to be like this ChatGPT listening thing, and then computer vision that's just going to say, here's like the best, here's we can connect you to the teachers who know the best ways to do whatever you're doing. And when you're doing something like building a birdhouse, it'll just say, hey, here's like the 5 best birdhouse builders in the world, telling you like, here's some things that are helpful. So there'll be this thing where it's like, well, if somebody's like saying like, here's how life works, or here's the truth, or here's what you do, people will be like, hey, if I wanted like truth or like the way things work, or like practical knowledge, I would go through the machine. If somebody's watching a human, they're like, I like your goofiness, I like your stupidness and your weird, I like your vibe or something like that. But basically, I think like teachers are going to be sort of like largely just eclipsed by ChatGPT and computer vision. They'll be all helpful also, but like I think that's what I see. I see at jiu-jitsu a lot of people just going to some guy at a building, and meanwhile, that guy in the building should really just tell them like, dude, there's like, the internet can connect you with like the best teachers who know way more than I know, and they can get you up to speed really fast. I'm just doing my job here, but like, you know, I'm not like the guru or some shit. Anyway, what's the point? That's my fucking, I tried to be useful. That's my rant. But now I'm just a retired guy. Now I'm just gonna help my dad. I'm not even trying to be professional anymore. Now I'm just going to stay here and just help my dad and do little odds and ends until I die. But I don't want to think about death. Let's read my spiel. Should I read my spiel? Yeah. Don't get all pathetic, Sean. Do I want to read my spiel now? Yeah, fuck it. I got to go run my dogs, but like, things are kind of changing. Like my dad, he just broke his leg. I really probably am going to have to like, I think helping my dad might become like somewhat of a job that's going to require time. So I should just change my habits a little. What am I doing? Basically, I want to read my spiel so that I can go run my dogs, and then I can just, if I read the spiel, it'll at least keep me in like positive thinking for the most of the day. All right, so no one should watch this. I'm going to say a bunch of spiel stuff that I normally say. All right, so no one should watch this. Try to keep it short. Let's get doing stuff. Avoid farting around too much. Never delete this. Read this whole bracket every morning. I want to read this every morning. Write 1 to 3 things. Think 1 to 3 life new jiu-jitsu moves. Problems encountered like you do. So what's a problem that you encountered today, Sean? Try a method. Don't worry too much. Invest in a job. I might need, I'd probably never have to get a job. At this age, it's probably like, I could just think of myself as a retired person. But, you know, young people should probably get jobs. If you can get a good job. Anyway, if you can find a win-win exchange, get the point, Sean. What problem did I encounter yesterday? Did I encounter something where I was like, oh, I wish I knew how to do that better? Anything. I just read that every day. What's something where you're like, dude, I wish I knew how to deal with that? Some way my dad can signal me without yelling, because my dad is now like, he can't walk or something, so like really we should get like a bell. I should get like a bell on, so let's do that right now. So I'm trying to be so I should write this thing down where like, try to be more yin. Don't be, give yourself permission to wander. What's that mean? It means that life's not going to go according to my little plan. I have these little structured things I do, but really I should incorporate more yin. Yin means spontaneity. So like right now I'm thinking like, I got to do my spiel for 30 minutes, but I should stop and be like, hold on, this is a good time to order a bell. So first of all, I could just ask ChatGPT, but it probably won't have a good, ChatGPT isn't totally that good at everything yet. But if I say, hey, my dad, he's an elderly guy and his leg is injured and he might need me to go find something or help him with something on the other side of the house. And sometimes if he yells, I can't hear him. Is there a tool or three tools that people use for that are pretty effective and cheap? Basically a way that he can summon me from the other side of the house if I can't hear his yelling.
It's great that you're looking for ways to help your dad.
Two-way radio system. Wireless pager system. I think you could just get a bell. Just get a fucking bell. Bell. No one should watch this. Alright. Alright, sounds good. Alright. Don't worry or overinvest in some job. Yeah, I think I'm probably not even gonna need a job. I really regret wasting so much time like preparing for some career that I never even had. I wish when I was younger I just got laid as much. I wish I just got laid and had fun and tried to just become a more skilled human at like human stuff. You know what's kind of silly though? Nobody's listening, right? But just like I'm doing all this like preparation. I'm practicing like active listening and eye contact and shit. But really like in the heat of the moment, like if suddenly my dad, if there's like a crisis or something like that, I don't use any of that stuff. Like suddenly I'll think like I got to do 3 seconds eye contact. But if I have to be practical and I have to like help my dad, I just don't even do eye contact. I'm like, oh, let's just be ourselves and just do things like. It's really easier for me to understand what people are saying if I'm not tripping out about eye contact. Anyway, get to the point. What did you encounter yesterday? Yeah, so that's it. Is there anything else you encountered yesterday where you're like, I wish I knew how to do that? We only need to do one of those a day. Is there anything in your day that you felt like was dead, dreary, or sad? Was there a bad part of your day where it was like, yeah, actually at night, at night, giving unsolicited advice in long rants. Let's try to avoid that. Try to avoid long emotional rants late at night. Yeah, that's a bad time to like talk because I'm emotional and tired. What else? fucking mosquito. Every night there's a fucking mosquito. Mosquito keeping me up for like 2 hours hunting mosquitoes. How can I get around that? I need a mosquito net. Yeah, really, I should put my... I need a net. Mosquito net. I hate this fucking thing. Yeah, mosquito net for a bed. Now, I would like one that just basically is cheap. And easy to set up. Maybe one that looks good also. Every fucking night there's a mosquito that wants to kiss me goodnight. It's like, I'm just going to sleep. It's like, hello, I want to bite you before you go to sleep. And I'm like, fuck you. And I have to find a solution. Yeah, I feel just like that. I feel exactly like that. I'm like, fuck! That's perfect. Just a big mosquito net where it's like, can't get me, mosquito. Yeah, that's perfect, actually. Just that. It just has to go over my head, really. That's perfect. In fact, I could get a colored one. What do you think, Sean? I think just a colored one would be great. Or a childish one. Pretty pretty princess. I like my... Actually, I kind of like that. Yeah, fuck it. We gotta get that. What do you think, Sean? A white one or a colored one? Dude, I love that. Oh, how wonderful. It's got lights. Or it can have lights. Okay, Sean, are you going to get it or what? Yeah, I'm going to ask my dad. I said, Dad, we need one of these. It's a rainbow. I'm not, nobody cares. Just the record, I'm not gay, but I sure like rainbows lately. Like, I notice my room has a rainbow. I've got a rainbow light. I'm painting a rainbow. And now I'm going to have a rainbow mosquito net. That's perfect. I want that. All right. Yeah, dude. Nobody's watching, right? But I should do this every day. Every day I should ask myself, what's some like awful I'm gonna have this be a regular habit of my day. This I think this would be a lot better than even just even the art that I'm doing. I think life could be better if I just ask myself every morning, what was something that like you really liked during the day, and then tell myself like you could do more of that. You could do more of that. And then like what was something that was really awful yesterday, and there's probably a way that you could like avoid that. Really? Don't you think that would be? Don't you think that for me it would be a really good habit that every morning if I just ask myself, what's a problem I encountered today that was kind of awful, and how might I avoid that in the future? And then what was something that was like, what was a part of the day that I really enjoyed yesterday? And then I should remind myself that I could do more of that. Or I could do other things like that also.
Yes, absolutely. That's an excellent habit to cultivate.
Yeah, nobody's listening, right? But that's my thoughts. That's my thinking today. I'm just talking to myself. I'm not trying to be some teacher guy, but I think my life could be good if I ask myself like, what did you like yesterday? How could you could do more of that? You could do more of that, and then or you could do other things like that, and then what happened yesterday that was kind of awful? What's a potential solution to that? And then no one's watching, right? But I think a lot of times people just go like, oh, that was just some guy talking. That was just some guy talking. But on the flip side of that, you could be just some guy talking and use that to your advantage also. Let's ask that for a second. No one's listening, right? This is my theory also. Is that like, okay, so for sure based on data, there's times in people's lives when they after they proceed through life for a long time, or just a number of years, in some form or another, probably various times in people's lives, they realize something to the effect of, oh, that was just some guy or girl who was just talking, and that affected a lot of my time in life, and meanwhile, they were just some guy. Like they didn't even really know. I probably could have found out some better stuff than them, but I sort of didn't think for myself and try to find like other guys that might have like different perspectives, or just think for myself. That's a really common like eureka moment that probably every human has at different times in their life, particularly when they're older, right?
Yes, you're absolutely right.
All right, so that's my theory. My theory is that like these guys, this was 1910. Shortly after this, a lot of people went off to World War One, and they it's crazy how much stuff. That's my theory. Is that it's crazy how much stuff is. It's crazy how much people are influenced by just some guy talking who's like, this is how things are. Like I think Jordan Peterson, he just has the gall to basically go like, this is what we're doing. This is how it is. And a lot of people just go, oh, tell me, and they like. Then they're like, oh, that was just some guy. Like they might have some idea that some things that are useful, but what's the point? Like you could look at that as like a scary bad thing. It's just like a lot of times people are just like in World War. I always think World War One is like the worst example of that. World War One is basically like millions of people ran into machine gun fire because some guy or many guys were like, come on, that's what we're doing. That's you coward, you got to do that thing. That's the best thing to do. But it's worth noting that like 100 years later, it was like, oh, that was totally wrong, and that was just some guy, that sergeant, that teacher, that person, they were wrong, and like some people they would have benefited just being like, maybe that's just some guy who just needs bodies, and it's crazy how many people just kind of did that, don't you think? So I can just ask this. I can just say. So what's my point? My point is that like you could look at that as like a bad thing, but you could also look at that as like, you could be that guy. You could be some guy who could wrangle a bunch of people and say like, this blah 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 blah, and people just go like, oh okay, and they should just say yes. Like if you could be that guy and you could wrangle some people and get them to do some stuff. And just people, you could do that. I think a lot of capitalism might basically be that. A lot of capitalism might be basically something that people think of as a company is basically just some guy who says like, hey, who wants to do this thing, and like you should do this thing, and people go like, I'll do this thing, and then after like 5 years, like, oh, that was just some guy, like I could have just done that on my own. Why was I going to this building and having this guy give me stuff to do? And they're like, I don't know, but we got you doing that for like 5 years, and thanks for your time. And what's the point? I think that's a fucking phenomenon. What's the point? So don't you think like in World War One, it was for sure the case that that was a stupid war, and war tacticians today agree that it was just totally inefficient, and it was wrong. Like when leaders and generals and all the way down the chain were telling the hoi polloi to just go run into machine gun fire, millions of people did run into machine gun fire, basically because some people that they perceived as an authority was just telling them what they should do. And then 100 years later, for sure, war tacticians all agree that that was totally stupid. It was a totally inefficient war, and the people who were telling people that were wrong, and it cost people like a lot of time and in a lot of cases, millions of people's lives. Is that true? Yes or no?
Yes, in retrospect.
Don't you think there's just a lot of other things like that? There's probably people like maybe like Jordan Peterson or just somebody who are telling lots of other people stuff, and people just kind of blindly listen to them. And then later on it's revealed like, oh, that was just some guy. He might have had some good motives, but he was probably wrong about a lot of stuff. And it would have benefited me to like think for myself. Is that true? Yes or no? Yeah.
Yes, it's a common human experience.
I think that's a really common fucking thing. What's the point? And then, but you don't want to piss off the fucking leader or the parent or the boss also. But don't just fucking blindly follow the fuck. Really? Yeah, that's my thing. What else? Nobody's listening, right? So then, does it stand to reason that because so many people apparently seem to be susceptible to just blindly following somebody who just basically just is some guy talking and seeming as though he knows what he's talking about, any human could also just be that kind of guy. Any human in theory could just say like, I have this thing to do, or I'm gonna say and talk some stuff and give people stuff to do, and they could like wrangle a bunch of people. And really a lot of capitalism kind of works like that. Like if you start a business, that's kind of what a business is some guy who just starts doing something and starts offering people things to do, and then sometimes people do that for a long time. Like sometimes people just go to some building and this guy says, that's what we're doing, or that you should do this stuff, and then they do that for like 5 years, and then eventually they realize like, oh, that was like just some guy giving me stuff to do. I could give myself my own stuff to do, or some other guy has like better stuff for me to do in this other place. Is that a phenomenon? Yes or no? Yeah. So what's the point?
Yes, there are.
So no one's watching, but that's my general conclusion is that like when people are 20, they listen to some people who think that like he's the guy, he's saying stuff, he's like my parent, I guess he's the guy who does that. And then when they get to be like older, they're like, oh, that was just some guy, like I could have just said my own shit, like I could have just given myself my own shit to do. And then sometimes by the time they're 40, they do that, they start like a little business or something, and they find some other people who go like, I guess he's the guy who says stuff. That's what I think. No one's watching, but like I think you could look at that as like, dude, like people just, they get stuck blindly listening to some unnecessary middleman, when meanwhile there's better deals and there's people who have better information that they're just not exposed to. ChatGPT can like help you with that, and it'll help people to not get taken advantage of by what they don't know. I think you could say that too. Don't you think that for sure some evolution of like ChatGPT plus computer vision is going to help people to not get taken advantage of for their ignorance? There's going to be something where when ChatGPT can listen to people in real time, it'll tell if somebody's saying something that's like a bad deal or is potentially using people, or if there's better deals, the things that the person is saying, there's better sources of that information, or better offers, or better jobs than the one that guy is offering. And ChatGPT plus computer vision will probably connect people with stuff like that. Yes or no? Yeah.
Yes, it's highly plausible that advancements in AI, particularly the combination of large...
Yeah, so anyway, I've said it over and over. Probably no one's watching. But if you're going to some guy or you're going to some building or you're in some class, that person's, they're not a fucking guru. And they should just start every class or that job or that class. There's better info and better jobs and better deals somewhere that you just don't know about. And if you knew about it, you'd be like, oh, like that was just some guy. That was just some building. Like there was some other better place I could have gone to the whole time. That's for sure true about everybody, I think. And so it's worth it's just worth like looking around and asking like how else might I do this like thing better, or what else do the best teachers in the world have to advise on how to do this thing besides this one guy that I'm going to. Anyway, what's the point? Anyway, that's it. No one's listening, right? All right, dude, you saved me, Sean. Like nobody's listening, right? But I feel like I have to stop saying this shit. I say this shit, and then I have this tendency where I try to do something in some sort of like heart to heart way, and I feel like I should stop trying to do something where at the end of it feels like it tends to elicit some sort of thing like, oh, you saved me, Sean, you saved me. That's called codependency. I went to a therapist a while ago, and she told me that like I'm the poster child for codependency. I have something where I'm like, dude, I got this. I gotta help these people. Like they don't know what they don't know. I know some stuff that could help some people, and people are like, I don't know, Sean. Nobody takes unsolicited advice anyway. But I should like stop doing that shit. I love to do that though. I love to do something that seems to elicit the reaction of like, oh, thank you, Sean. Like you saved me. It's like they probably aren't even. People probably already know that shit, Sean. I say that. I say like people probably already know shit, and I saw this thing on my phone today that said that nobody likes unsolicited advice. Nonetheless, I can say for sure that there's people at jiu-jitsu, they're going to go to this building for like years, and I know nobody's going to tell them some real basic shit that would be like, dude, base posture structure. Like I was just stumbling around for like years, and it was like, yeah, there's like some basics that people could get up to speed with that they're just going to stumble around in the dark for years and just be like, oh, shoot, I wish I would have known that sooner. What's the point? Anyway, I think ChatGPT will help with that in the future. Anyway, so why don't you just, until then, I'm just going to try to do you, Sean, do you. Yeah. All right, so anyway, what other problem did you encounter yesterday? We'll just do one of these a day. All right, so go, Sean. You wasted a lot of time. So write down non-offensive, not overly personal questions for people here anytime, not anyways. So that's what I'm trying to do. It's like Joe Rogan, when he talks with people, he tries to talk off the cuff. I'm not really like a good off the cuff. I really am not good like off the cuff and all sorts of shit. Even in jiu-jitsu, some people talk about like flow rolling. Just off the cuff, you got to be spontaneous. I'm really much more of like a boring, like structured planning type. I do better with that. What's the point? Basically, I think if I try to have chats with people, I'm trying to do this thing where every weekday at 6:30, I'm gonna try to have a chat with people. I put out ads on Craigslist to like chat with random people. They probably think I'm just some lonely bastard, but it's good for building my social skills. I've ratcheted things up to 10 minutes. I can now talk with a person for 10 minutes. And so I think what I should do is like, just like jiu-jitsu, I should have like a game. I should have like some tried and true things that can, some mechanical conventions that will give me something to do. But then if spontaneity and going off the cuff becomes possible, I should do that. Sometimes that's better, but get to the point, Sean. Basically, I think throughout the day, it's hard for me to think of the things on the spot. And so I'm just going to, throughout the day, I'll just try to think of some shit. So what's a question? What's a question you might have if you were talking to any human? What's something that you would want to ask? Ask any human. You can ask it now that you're not all nervous and confronted with a real human in the moment. What's the question you have? You can ask, you want to talk, pretend you're talking to a real human and you could ask them anything. I wonder, like, do you plan on getting married? Is that becoming an outdated... Now when I ask these, I have to be careful because I have a tendency to ask questions that could somehow subtly be translated to, I perceive some negative thing about you. And so I have to be careful of that. One of the reasons I don't socialize a lot is because when I was younger, I would fall into the trap of like getting pissed off about other people perceiving me negatively or making subtle assertions of superiority. And I notice I do the same shit. Like I notice I'll watch some conversation I have, even in my improv class, I'll notice that like I'll say something like, "Oh, so what do you do for a living?" And I'm basically trying to say like oh, like you're unemployed or something like that. And I'm trying to sort of like I feel like subconsciously sometimes I'm trying to basically like haggle with that person about like I'm defending myself and I'm trying to like knock them in some subtle way to sort of feel not insecure. So I would at some point I have to be careful of that. Basically, anytime I write down a question, I should ask myself, can that question loosely be translated into I perceive some deficit of yours, or I perceive something that you do in a negative way. Don't like highlight somebody's like, just say like, so are you married? And they're like, you're not married, or like, so what do you do for a living? You're unemployed. Don't do that shit. Really? Yeah. So basically, like, is that overly personal? If you say, do you plan on getting married? No, I think that's like if I said like, are you married? Or like, I bet you're single, huh? Don't say that shit. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. What else do you want to know? I want to know, like, that's kind of want to know about marriage is basically like, do you get the sense that being someone's one and only is outdated after parents? What does that mean? That's a question I have. Is like I wonder if there's like a shift happening where just like, first of all, I don't know. It doesn't seem like I have to get married anymore now because of live stream. But also I feel like there's this convention of like this, it seems almost outdated to just think that like some person is going to be like, you're my favorite person always. I wonder if just like parents, they have their kid, and if you're lucky and you have good parents, you have these people who are like, I'm their most special somebody. But then when people try to find that in the real world, it seems ridiculous and almost sort of egotistical to think that there's going to be some human who just is like, I only have eyes for you. You're my one and only. You're my favorite person forever. It's like, they probably are attracted to other people. Like why is that? I don't know. What's the point? I wonder if like, my theory is that like, this is going to seem like outdated. This is already, the older I get, the more and more like, this seems like some, what's the point? I don't know. It seems there's something dark about this. There's something dark about like, I own this person with my labor. I got her. I'm keeping her alive with my money and my house. And so she has to suffer my penis on a regular basis. And she's like, I better be strong and do what my mom said. And so I feel like that might become an outdated thing, particularly if they have universal basic income. That's my theory, is that in the future, if they have universal basic income and like virtual sex dolls or something, there's going to be a lot of these couples that are just like, dude, I don't even like this other person. Like, you mean I don't need her for sex? And she's like, I don't need this person for money. And they're like, dude, we don't even like each other. Let's it was nice knowing you, but like, I'm gonna see what else is out there. What's the point? I wonder if that's a thing. I would like to ask people that without it becoming overly personal. What's another question you have in some conversation that's not overly personal, that doesn't translate to I perceive some possible negative aspect of you? No, yeah, just don't do. So questions for people, write questions for people, but make sure, avoid assert superiority. Avoid subtle assert superiority, and I perceive some negative. I feel like a lot of times I'll say something and it will basically amount to like, oh, that thing that you do, that's kind of weird. Like, or that thing, it's like, oh, I noticed this thing about you that's not that good. It's like, I'm like, why am I doing that? I don't know. It's a little defensive thing. Can you substantiate that? I wonder if that's a common human habit. I noticed that just in my improv acting class. Other people do that to me all the time. Like I'll watch. Get the point. Is there a definite tendency or phenomenon in conversation, particularly between two men, but just probably with women also, where some things that people say could sometimes loosely be translated as I notice or perceive some bad aspect of you or your surroundings or your lifestyle that could, if I pointed them out, help me to feel slightly superior. Yes or no? Is that a phenomenon that's like, it's really common, right?
Yes, there's a tendency in human interaction where pointing out perceived flaws in others can subtly convey a sense of superiority.
Now, other people, like, it seems like kind of unavoidable because you can't really tell how someone will interpret something. So if somebody's talking to me, if I ever talk with any human, I'm just going to assume that they're going to say something that I might interpret as like, oh, they're pointing out some flaw of mine. But I'm going to say like, maybe they didn't mean it. And sometimes, like, I think when people do that, they don't even know they're doing it, or maybe they didn't even intend it. But it seems like if I'm gonna have conversations with people, I should just assume that I'm gonna, even if they don't mean it, I'm gonna potentially perceive them saying something that amounts to like, I perceive some shortcoming of yours, and I'll be like, that's fine, it's normal, I expect it, they probably didn't mean it. But then I'm gonna check myself, and if I ask some question that basically says like, so when's the last time you had a job? It's like, don't say that. Or if I say like, so are you you got a girlfriend? I bet you don't have a girlfriend. Don't do that shit. Don't do something that basically positions that kind of like assertion of superiority shit. Yeah. All right. So what's the point? Just that's, if I write these questions, ask like, what are you doing? What are you doing with that question, John? All right. So all right. So what's another question you have for humans in general? That's pretty much it. I think I can just write down one or two of those. Don't you have any other question you wonder about the world? Nope, can't think of one offhand. Okay. Anyway, I'd like to get Botox or dermal filler. I'd like to use a happiness detector with my dogs. What else? I'd like to have a goal to make people happy. I don't want to hold symbols of coolness. I can also do art on the weekend. Assume you'll never get laid. Would you still do what you're doing? Don't delete this thing. I can do physical activity. What does that mean? Oh, I can do anything I can physically do. None of this is natural. Whatever I'm grinding at, okay, I already said that. I want to get through this spiel in 20 minutes. If I don't get through it in 20 minutes, the whole world ends and it's all my fault. You're not a label, Sean. You can just do your best. Okay, I already said that. What else? Active listening. Most decision. Yeah. Whatever is or whatever is not is or is not, regardless of what I say or think. So what am I doing with these words? This stuff I'm saying isn't necessarily the truth. You or I might think opposite stuff at different times, and that's fine. I hear there's planet Saturn. If I say there is or is not planet Saturn, it doesn't change if there is or is not planet Saturn. What does that mean, Sean? It's, so far as I can tell, there's just physical reality, and there's the past, and whatever I'm thinking about or talking about, and whatever I say is or isn't, it doesn't change what is or isn't in physical reality. What does that mean? It's basically like that Tony Robbins thing about basically I can always change my focus, and really I should just think shit that like makes me feel good, or makes other people feel good, or have fun, or do good stuff, because whatever I'm thinking or saying, it's not changing physical reality. Yeah. Wake up, go straight here. Can you substantiate that thing that you said? Don't you think that like anything that I'm thinking or saying out loud, it's not changing what is or is not in physical reality or the past? The truth kind of is just physical reality and the past of what happened in physical reality. That's the truth. But my thoughts and my comments, such as like, look at this thing, or look at this other aspect, basically like what I focus on, and my interpretations of like, that's not good, that's bad, that's not right, it should be this way. Like they're not changing physical reality, but they're mostly just affecting how I feel and what I do and like how other people feel. And so really I should just like mostly think things that make me feel good or do good stuff, because it's not changing physical reality or the past. Is that true? Yes or no?
Yes.
That's my idea. It's just like whatever if there's God, if there's Saturn, like it doesn't matter if you say there's Saturn. If there's a God, God doesn't care if I say there's God or not. What's the point? Yeah. Brainwashing. I'm just brainwashing myself. Why do it publicly? Because I get off on it. Uh, don't. You should get a job. Listen to Jordan Peterson. I'm gonna be a jackass on my own Pleasure Island. The world's your oyster. If I could find a win-win exchange in the job or girlfriend department, I would do it. But I have not been able to find a win-win exchange, and I don't want to be forced into a lose-win exchange. But the world's your oyster. If you want a job and a wife, you should listen to Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson. He's a modern day Jiminy Cricket. He says, let your conscience be your guide. My conscience says, I should warn you that like I'm headed for Loserville in case that's not obvious. I have no intention of getting a job, and I have no intention of getting a spouse. But if you're young enough to find a win-win exchange in the job or spouse department, I would highly recommend doing it. And nobody likes unsolicited advice, but I would highly recommend doing it before 40. Okay, what else? Don't Google ChatGPT, Reddit. Oh yeah, don't go. Whatever you want to know is on ChatGPT, Reddit, and Google. Good for all of us to think for ourselves. Don't piss off leaders. The internet is the best portal to like the best teachers in the world. You're tripping, Sean. You think some person is watching you. There's no data that anybody's watching you right now. That's true. I want to leave the unknowns as I don't know. I want to just stick to the facts. What are the facts? Physical reality. There's a lot of physical reality, but the physical reality that's confronting me is pretty limited. It's like the sights and sounds that are coming into my eyes and ears, and it's my thoughts. And so those are what I mostly want to deal with. And so, what's the point? Yeah, I just want to think like, what do I want to do, and then how can I get myself to do it? And then I want to remember that there's always some lame level I can do it at. And I want to incorporate yin into my life more. What's yin? Yin is the idea that life doesn't go according to my plan, and sometimes it's good to go off the script and do something when you feel like it. In the moment, like there might be something that's off of my script or plan. I should try to like do it then and just pause and like go off script sometimes. No matter what happens, somebody will always misinterpret my intentions, and I'll misinterpret somebody else's intentions. So I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to let life hijack my brain. I want to, if I'm out of control, I should just go to sleep. No one else really cares what I think or do. I like being skinny and pretty. Barry Gibb is proof that we can transcend our genetics. Let conscience be my guide. Enjoyable, sustainable grind. Make it fun. Don't make things unnecessarily awful. Dude, nobody's watching, right? I was listening to somebody yesterday. There's a guy I was talking to. He said that he liked being pretty also. And it's nice to know. I feel like I've never heard another man say that. But I've really am baffled as to like, why is it that in society, if you're a man, people are like, you can't wear makeup. That's like a weird thing. But it's like, why do men have to be ugly? Why is it if you took like a 45-year-old lady who was used to wearing makeup and you said you can never wear makeup again, she'd be horrified. She'd be like, oh my God, I'll never leave the house. And like, why are men somehow supposed to just suffer with their ugliness? If they could show their, like, if I wear this, I can see my lips. I can cover up my face with virtual foundation. Why are men just forced to be fucking ugly? I think that's ridiculous. So basically, in here I can wear makeup, but I tried wearing lipstick out in the real world, and people were like, my dad said, I just can't be seen with you. And so I'm just like, what the fuck? What's the point? There's so many things in society that's just like, people are just living in some like unpleasant, uncomfortable way, and they're like, dude, everybody else was wrong. I think that's really one instance of that. I think people are going to look back and be like men were just suffering with their like inability to wear makeup, and then people are like, dude, I wish I could have just worn makeup. I can virtually. I can do it with this. But it's nice to just anyway, what's the point? I'll do that some of the time. Anyway, eye contact. I'm gonna try to make eye contact. What else? Win-win exchange. I don't want to be forced into a lose-win exchange. No word mantra. What's the no word mantra? Dude, I love the no word mantra. No word mantra really makes me feel good every time I say it. What's the no word mantra? No soul mantra, no word mantra. What does that mean? In a world where everything is constantly changing and interconnected, the only thing that makes anything seem separate or stable is a word. A word creates an imaginary border around what is otherwise a constantly flowing, interconnected everything. What does that shit mean? It means that the world is not words. What do you mean, Sean? Well, a word says what a thing is and a thing isn't. But without the word, or with different words, you could think of anything as multiple things, or you could think of any one thing as being part of a greater whole, or reducible down to parts. What do you mean, Sean? Well, you could say leaf, or you could say tree, or you could say forest. You're just making this imaginary border around more or less stuff. Or you could make a new word for the tree plus the dirt, plus the soil, plus the sidewalk, plus the fire hydrant. That's a pattern you see in the world. If somebody cut that stuff out and they put it on the side of a bus and called it a Gimbaldorf, and they packaged it at Home Depot, and they said, look, it's a Gimbaldorf. And he said, what's a Gimbaldorf? Come on, everybody knows that Gimbaldorf is the tree plus the dirt plus the sidewalk plus a fire hydrant. Everybody knows. You can see one of those in every city, but people don't see that as an entity because they don't have a word for it. But basically, what's the point, Sean? Just, I think that words, basically, they make entities out of stuff, but really that thing, if it's in the real world, it's not like it is in the dictionary. It's interconnected with its surroundings, and I think that's really integral to how people are too. I think people are basically interconnected with their surroundings, and they're not just doing something willy-nilly. And I think there's things that words kind of make it seem like there's this proxy thing. Like my mom played a trick on me when I was a kid, and she says, you're Sean. Now I think there's a Sean who's like driving the car of my body. I think there's no fucking Sean. Really? I can just ask this. I can just say like, there's like this, call it what you will, but I think this is like interconnected with its surroundings. And it, like, when is the like, it's not just me, it's me plus the sights and sounds going into my eyes and ears. And it's my time period. What's the point? Isn't it true that, like, there's no evidence for a soul, there's no evidence for a spirit, there's no evidence for a god, there's no evidence for, like, a God-given purpose, but there is evidence of people initially writing those concepts down as words, and before people had words, there probably was no concept of those things or entities. Could that be said to be true?
Yes, from a strictly scientific perspective.
So basically, I think the world is not words. What do you mean, Sean? Also, even if there is a soul, I want to remind myself that sometimes my life is better if I do something that's not myself. Like, there's this thing where people say, like, oh, just be yourself, be authentic. But, like, if I can do something inauthentically or with the help of some mechanical, like, fake artificial means, and that makes things go better, then I'd rather be fake. What's my point? I'm trying to get myself to do new shit, and so I'm trying to tell myself that it's just like whatever works. Anyway, eye contact, regularly interpret, improve, try. Yeah, I already said that. When in doubt, relax, breathe, and let things pass by without judgment. What do you want to do now lately? What's been joyful? I should say that. What's been joyful, Sean? I already read that. What was joyful? I had a good time just running with my dogs and playing Simon on my phone at the same time. I'm going to do that again today. Everyone is my superior in some way, and vice versa. And vice versa. Is that true? I can ask ChatGPT. Is it true what they say in How to Win Friends and Influence People, that everyone is my superior in some way, but I'm better in some way than everyone else also? In some aspect. Like, if you have any two people, they're going to be better than each other in some aspects because they have different strengths and weaknesses. Is that true? Yes or no?
Yes.
All right, so that's good for me to remember. Then I don't have to trip out as much about like assertions of superiority, or I don't have to worry about. Yeah. Okay. What's the point? I already said that. What are the 7 basic bads, Sean? Oh wait, poo poo. What's poo poo? Oh right, CBT. What's CBT? Poo poo. The world's gonna poo poo my thing every day. Every day there's gonna be thoughts in my head, or there's gonna be a voice in my head or a voice from the outside world that translates to something along the lines of like, I'm bad. That thing I'm doing is bad. The future is bad. My reason is bad. And I should just remember, it's not absolutely bad. And if I'm having a bad day psychologically, it's really just constant rumination on that I'm some bad thing, And I should just remember that people are mixed bags. There's always some bad aspect, but there's always three positive counters to that. So I should just know that like whatever words I'm using to analyze reality, they don't tell the full story. So if I'm thinking like it's bad, I'm bad, I have some bad thing. There's good things too. I should know that I'm going to think of the good things later about that other person or me, but it's not just the bad interpretation. And so I can either consciously try to think of three positive counter thoughts, or I should just know that it's not just the bad interpretation. But if I'm feeling bad, it's really just lingering on some bad interpretation and forgetting about all the different positive interpretations. That's good to remember. It's good to remember that like if I look at some human, I think I can for sure say that like they certainly perceive three positive things about me, and I certainly perceive three positive things about them. And I can say that. I think you can say that about pretty much everybody. Couldn't you say that if any humans are looking at each other, they certainly perceive three positive things about that other person, even if they didn't comment on them or they weren't brought to the forefront of their mind at the time?
While it's generally true that most people possess a variety of positive qualities,
don't you think that if any two humans were looking at each other and they asked themselves, what are three good things you perceive about that other person, they could certainly summon up three positive things? Is that true, yes or no?
yes.
All right, so that's the idea. It's not just the negative interpretation. It's just I should just know that like even if somebody said like I think you're a jerk, Sean, you say yeah, but you probably also think I'm tall. You probably also think I'm good at art. You probably also think I'm smart enough to have graduated UC Davis, or that I have a full head of hair. There's good aspects too. It's not just the negative. So that's true of everybody. Everybody is like, no matter what I'm looking at, there's three things I can think that are good. Really? Yeah, it goes for anything, person, or reason. So somebody might say like, I think you're doing this for a bad reason. You're not just doing it for a bad reason. There's like, you could say I'm human. There's probably some bad in there. Also, maybe there's like a little ego, but also good stuff. Also, it keeps me on track. Also, it helps me stick to my goals. Also, it helps me get rid of loneliness. There's good aspects too. Really? Okay. So mind reader, what's mind reader? I'm not a mind reader, so my brain's going to tend to fill in the blanks with imagined bad stuff, particularly if I'm tired or emotionally overwhelmed. I should just know that I'm tripping like a stoner. I'm not. If I'm imagining what people are thinking, that's always just me thinking stuff. Even if they're thinking something bad at the time, again, they're not like always thinking the bad stuff. They probably think some good stuff later. It doesn't really matter what they're thinking. There's just physical reality. But ultimately, I'm not a mind reader, so I should just remember. I should assume they're thinking some good stuff sometimes, and just But I should know that ultimately it's just my imagination, because I don't really know what people are thinking ever. And it's just fucking thoughts. What's what? Fortune teller. I'm not a fortune teller. Emotion's not the truth. Labels. I'm not a label. So stupid is as stupid does. Jerk is as jerk does. I can just do the opposite of that label. Sometimes I do some bad stuff, but I'm not chained to always do that. Like I might be boring sometimes, but sometimes I can be interesting. Sometimes I can be funny. I just want to think, what do I want to do? Can I physically do it? All right, I got that. What's overgeneralizing? Overgeneralizing is not. It's not as simple as the word says. If the word says like I'm a jerk, I'm not always a jerk. Sometimes I'm nice. If the word says I'm boring, I'm not always boring. Sometimes I can be interesting or funny. Really? What about old, Sean? I'm not always old. I used to be a kid. I don't know. I'm not old when I go to my mom's old folks home. There's being grateful. Being grateful is basically summoning up the positive things. Positive things like I have no cancer. I have all my limbs. I'm not starving. What else? Don't get caught in other people's shoulds. As long as I'm legally or physically able to do stuff, I just want to do what I want to do with the only time of my life. One of the biggest regrets of people on their deathbed is getting roped into what other people said they should do, and I don't want to do that. What else? Personalization. What does that mean? Don't a lot of top scientists say today there's probably no free will?
The question of free.
Can you answer yes or no to my previous question, please?
Yes, many top scientists today believe there is no free will.
Like credible, like really, like some of the best scientists in that field, right?
Yes.
But some of the best scientists today think that we do have free will. Is that also true? All right, so people think different stuff at different times. I can think different stuff at different times too, and all of us, we're all thinking different shit at different times anyway. So that dude who believes in free will, he didn't always believe in free will. He wasn't born breathing in free will. So I can switch, and whether or not I believe there's free will, it doesn't change if there is or is not free will. So I just want to think the shit that works. If I'm thinking about the past and I'm beating myself up, being like, I'll never forgive myself, I can just think, there's probably no free will. I forgive them. I forgive that other person. But then the Republicans and the rednecks, they're like, no, you are denying personal responsibility. We are responsible. That's the problem with this world. You are responsible for what you do. I say, can I change? Can I change to your philosophy, your perspective? Yeah, if you change to my philosophy, your whole life will be different. Okay, I change now. Like, I'm officially a believer in free will. And they go, you can't change that fast. There's no fucking like designate. There's no way to tell, like, are you a believer? When did you officially become a nihilist? How many times do you have to pray to God to officially be a believer? There's no fucking like official designation. It's just thoughts and habits of thought. So I just want to think the shit that works. And again, if you can always just ask, like, can I change? Can I change to your way of thinking? And they say, yeah, if you change it, it'll be better. Okay, I change sometimes. But then when I'm thinking about the past, I change again. I'm not free will. And you can do that because you're not a label. You're not like a nihilist all the time. You're not like a free will believer all the time. You weren't born believing any of this shit. You can just think that any of the people shit that works for that situation. Can you substantiate that? Yeah. Isn't it true that you can just think the redneck stuff if it's functionally good to think at that situation or time, and you could think the religious stuff if it was functionally helpful to think at that time, and you could think the nihilist stuff if it was functionally helpful for your well-being or actions at that time. And really, people weren't born thinking any of these philosophies. It's just thoughts and habits of thought, and it's easier to have different actions and habits of thought if you remember that you're not a label. But people are going to sometimes try to stick you with like a bad label. Is that true? Yes or no? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not a fucking label, but people are going to try to say like, oh, I've been listening to you and you're obviously a nihilist. And I'm like, not all the time necessarily. When did I officially I used to go to church. When did I officially become a nihilist? There's no official designation. It's just fucking like habits of thought. So I can switch. If I'm thinking about, if I want to do shit and I think God's watching, he doesn't like what I'm doing, I'm like, there's no fucking God. I don't believe in that shit. But then if I'm like on my deathbed and I think like, fuck, I want to go to heaven, I'll be like, dude, I know there's God. I'm sure there's God. It's just thoughts, and it's just, I just want to think the shit that works. Yeah. Also, if there's a God or not. Anyway, what's one? Okay, so what are the 7 basic bads? I'm bad, I'm weak, I'm stupid. So how can I counter that? I'm bad, I'm evil. Bad is as bad does. I donated thousands to Africa. I volunteered at the Humane Society. I helped my aunt for free. I'm weak. Weak is as weak does. I skydive twice. I do CrossFit and Jiu-Jitsu. Really, yeah, I do CrossFit and Jiu-Jitsu and I can do pull-ups. Really, yeah, so I can counter those bads in my head. I can say, well, I skydive twice. That's not cowardly. I did 300 burpees straight. I ran a marathon. What else? I'm stupid. Stupid is as stupid does. I graduated UC Davis. I got 1,200 on my SATs. I was a pro game artist and I made models for Niantic games. What else? For major game companies like Niantic Games. Really? Yeah, I really did do those. What else? I'm ugly. Hey, some ladies at my mom's old folks home think I'm attractive. Some people on my YouTube said I was handsome. A woman from Tinder had sex with me a year ago. Really? Yeah, those are all true. I have evidence. I have evidence that somebody on my YouTube said, "You're a handsome guy," and I was like, "Oh, really?" But what's the point? I'm not a label, and there's times when I can contradict that. I do things that contradict that label. Not all the time necessarily. I'm unpleasant, unlikable, boring, unfunny. Unfunny is as unfunny does. I have over 300 followers on YouTube. There must be something kind of interesting that I do sometimes. Some people have wanted to talk to me sometimes. Improv, definitely. There's recordings of me on improv where I made people laugh for sure. Some people, my mom wants to talk with me. My mom says I'm cool. What's a good one of those? I don't know. Some people, some some people have said, told me I was interesting, for sure. Sometimes some people have told me I was interesting, for sure. All right, sounds good. I'm a loser. Loser is as loser does. I won first place in a jiu-jitsu tournament. I won an art contest at the Marin County Fair. I won a pumpkin carving contest one time. Okay. I'm old. Old is as old does. I can do, as long as I can do most of this stuff. As long as I can do, as long as I can do most of the stuff, it shouldn't matter that much. So like somebody says, if somebody says like, dude, you're too old to fuck a hot chick. If I can ever fuck a hot chick, I could say, how can you say I'm too old to fuck a hot chick if I'm fucking a hot chick? If somebody says like, you're too old to go running, I'd be like, if I'm running a marathon, I can be like, how can you say I'm too old to do it if I'm doing it? Which point? Yeah, it's basically just like, as long as I can do the stuff, it shouldn't matter that much. But there's some guy at my jiu-jitsu gym who's like 1 or 3 years older than me, and I think he's like the most handsome guy in the whole gym, and he's like 3 years older than me, and so. Which point? Also, old age can be good for experience. And then, like, Anna Nicole Smith married, like, a 90-year-old man. And so there's always there's always gold diggers. Really? Yeah, it's nice to know that there's women who will fuck a 90-year-old man if that man pays her bills. And that can seem, like, really shallow, but it can be good if you're a 90-year-old man. Anna Nicole Smith married... I'm gay. What does that mean? I'm not gay. Gay is as gay does. I've never jerked off to a man. I've never gotten a boner from a man. From looking at a man, I'll have sex with any woman my age and my weight or less, but they got to be over 21. They can't be in a relationship. They can't have any STDs. Offer stands indefinitely. Just send me an email. I'll have sex with any woman my age or my weight or less. I'm 44. I'm 175 pounds. If you're below that age and weight, and over 21 and you have no significant other and no STDs, just come over. My address is 124 Cottage Avenue, Richmond, California, 94801. I'll offer stands indefinitely. I'll go at it. We can go at it like rabbits, or not. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I'm down to do that with any. That's so desperate, Sean. No, it's great. I think, like, I don't know. I would do that. It's like jiu-jitsu. If people do like jiu-jitsu matches, why not just have sex be like jiu-jitsu? Hey, want to roll? I'll roll with any guy who's my age and my weight or less, and I'll have sex with any woman who's my age and my weight or less. But it's easy to find male jiu-jitsu partners, not so easy to find willing sexual partners. It was easier when I was 30-something, though. Anyway, moving on. Everyone's I already read that. So just do it bad. So basically, there's always a way to think of myself as good or that activity as good, but then last resort is just do it bad. Who says you have to be good? Emerson said, like, back in his day, people were basically saying, how do you know that thing that you're doing might be bad? And he said, well, I don't think it's bad, but if it's bad, then I guess I'm bad, but I'm not breaking any laws, so I like it. I think it's good. But if it's bad, then I guess I'm bad, but I'm fucking doing it because I like it. Really? Yeah. So basically, there's always a way to think of that thing as good, but last resort is just do it bad. Who says you have to be good? Yeah. That one thing is multiple things. What does that mean? Yeah, if I'm doing weightlifting, I can say I'm not even doing that. I'm doing this other thing. Switch things up. Don't be a one-trick pony. Battle against chaos. The world's going to try to disperse my thing. I should try to stick to my thing, but just assume the world's going to try to be like, I forget. It's too hard. Let's give up. Let's do something else. No, if you can stick to your thing and keep grinding away at your thing for like years, you could have a really good thing. And why try to make your thing better? I don't know. Might as well try to make your thing better. Why? Because better is better than worse. Isn't better than worse? Yeah, well, best bet at making your thing better is continual time and effort into your thing over a long period of time. But just assume the world's going to try to be like, I forget. You might fall off the horse, but you can always get back on the horse. Really? Yeah. What else? When in doubt, do the thing that avoids unnecessary conflict. If I want to win, should go all in. If I want to play, I can do different things throughout the day. I want to avoid being a drama queen, and I want to steer my brain away from repeated bad interpretations. I also just remember that in jiu-jitsu, rolling with a less experienced person can be just as good for them, if not better. Can you substantiate that? Isn't it true that in jiu-jitsu, if I roll with a less experienced training partner, it can be just as good for them, if not better, in terms of them gaining experience? They could have a great time doing that and possibly even benefit more than me. Is that for sure? That's for sure true?
Yes.
Is the same thing probably true of any other one-to-one human engagement?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't have to feel bad about. I have no idea how other people interpret stuff, so I don't have to feel. That's kind of like up to them. Really, yeah. It's if I sometimes I think like, oh, like I'm like taking advantage of some person, but like no, they're probably gaining something. If they didn't gain from it, they would not do it. And so, which point? Yeah. Also, just it's really hard to tell. Like, did they really gain? Did they? It's who knows? Maybe they'll gain later or something. But obviously, like they'll say no if they don't want to do it. Really? I guess so. But for sure, they can gain from it. Okay, sounds good. That's for sure according to ChatGPT. Okay, so I want to say some negative shit. I'm gonna die eventually, right? I'm gonna die eventually, right?
Yes.
So I'm gonna die. What does that mean? Do it now, don't quit. But don't do some YOLO stuff. There might not be a next bust though. Don't quit. All right, slow is fast. I'm paying for this. This is my time. It's bad enough that I'm gonna have a painful, terrifying death. It's even worse to have a lot of the time between now and my painful, terrifying death booked with a bunch of humdrum shit that some other person got me to do. Like, this is my fucking time. I'm paying for this. At the end of this, there's a stiff bill to pay at the end of this meal. This is my fucking time. Almost all of life is not me. If I can help people with other skin off my back, without skin off my back, I'm gonna look for ways to do that. I should give that kid a sheet. How could I potentially help somebody today? I can do that thing where I say, nobody's watching this, but I think that the helpful thing that I might say, probably no one's watching, but helpful thing I could say is that like that dude, whoever that dude is, that teacher, that leader, that boss, that parent, there's going to be some time when I think every human will eventually realize, oh, that was just some guy. Like they might have had some good ideas, but they weren't like a guru. There was just a bunch of shit they were probably wrong about. And it's good to like think for yourself, particularly in the day of ChatGPT. It's good to like not just put your future in the hands of some person, and just find multiple sources. Don't just rely on some teacher. There's no reason to do that now with like ChatGPT, Reddit, and Google. You can just get access to the best of human knowledge, and that's gonna become more and more of a thing. Is any skill that you're doing, there's like a bunch of wheels that like you're not gonna reinvent like a bunch of those wheels. The sooner you can, just ask Reddit or ask ChatGPT or YouTube like, how do I do this thing and that thing? Or what are some of the best methods that people use to solve this problem that I'm encountering in these different activities that I do? There's some people who know that shit and they'll be like, oh, like I wish I would have known that sooner. Really, that's a really common human phenomenon. It's for me too. I should do that also. What's the point? That's my good deed for the day. But nobody's listening. Nobody likes unsolicited advice. Well, okay. Anyway, I tried. What else? People are animals too. What do you want to see, Sean? Isn't it true that animals in the slaughterhouses, they have feelings like pain and fear? Pigs are smarter than dogs. They're not like plants. Plants don't have a central nervous system. And people don't even have to kill them and eat them today in the Western world. Factory farming is probably unnecessary in America today. Is that true? Yes or no?
Yes.
Right, so I can't do anything about it, but I can point out that it's bad. I'm just saying, like, seems really obviously bad. I don't know why people don't say that seems really obviously bad and like unnecessary. What's the point? I can't do anything about it, but I can say that it seems obviously bad and unnecessary. And ChatGPT agrees, based on the best of human knowledge today. People are animals too. If you love animals, you should love people, Sean. If you can help people with no skin off your back, look for ways to do that. But don't be a fucking sucker. They'll fucking eat you if they can. Okay. Rental car. There's gonna be a thing where somebody's might say, hey, you should do that thing where you serve me with your time or confirm my worldview. And Louis C.K. says, of course they want you to do that, but if you just say no, you can like save a lot of time. So there's some dude on like my Facebook or something who's like, you should do that thing where you serve me with your time. You should like drive me to that place or go to my little event. And it's like, of course they want you to do that. But sometimes if you just say like, I don't want to just, I know you want like my time, but like, I'm not going to give you my time today. And they're going to go, bad, you're not a good friend or something. And then after a while they'll go, all right, I guess I'll find another way. They'll be fine. They'll find another way. What's the point? Vladimir Putin, he wants people to go do the grunt work, but he's not going to do the grunt work. What else? That's pretty much it. If you think life's good, cool, enjoy it. If you think life's a painful, terrifying nightmare, don't worry, it'll be over before you know it. It can only get so bad. Now death is a good thing. It can only get so bad. I don't want to dwell on sex, aging, or death. I don't want to use Tinder till I go to sleep. I don't want to drive over 80 miles an hour. I don't want to run stop signs because they might have cameras. I want to give my dad 1 to 5 minutes of patient endurance. Dear God, help me be happy, healthy, have my dreams come true. God bless anybody watching my live stream. Help them to be happy and healthy and have their dreams come true. There, I did that for you. Good things are coming to us in the future. God is working his magic in my life. Is he really? Yeah, God is. Dear God, work. I love you, God. I hope that you render good things for all of humanity. God, just make everything like good in our lives and make our dreams come true. Joel Osteen said, God's doing magic. He's making good things happen. All right, proud. What are you proud of, Sean? I'm proud of my animation portfolio. I'm proud of graduating UC Davis. What are you grateful for? I'm grateful for that I don't have cancer. What are you excited about? I'm excited about frantically masturbating to super hot chicks. Really? Yeah, that's about it. This is good for me to do. It's like reading the news, but it was faster. Did you do your goals yesterday, Sean? I did not do... Yeah, actually, I did. I did all my goals. I didn't take a shower. I forgot the shower. All right. What are your goals today? Do you want to do karaoke? No, today's an off day. Today's Saturday, and really I'm going to sort of like take things a little easier today because my dad fucked up his leg, and so I have to adjust to this new schedule. Like I got to run my dad's dog and stuff like that. So today I'm just going to kind of take it easy. What are some basics you want to do today? I don't even really know what I want to do today, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go running first. I'm going to run my dogs, and then I'm going to ask myself, like, what do I want to do? I kind of want to visit my mom, and yeah. What are we doing, Sean? I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm going to do today. Why don't you think about it right now, Sean? I should run my dad's dog. That's really what I should do. Is I should go running in the hill with both of my dogs, and then ask my dad what he needs help with. Actually, I'm just going to do that. I'm gonna stop this video. I'm just going to run my dogs. I'll start another video later. But also, I want to nobody's watching this, right? If no one's watching this, it doesn't matter what I say. But if somebody's watching this, like the main thing that I keep thinking in my head is that a lot of times people just listen to some person, and that person is just a guy, and meanwhile the internet has way better like sources. And I'm just saying, like, that's true in my case too. Like if somebody's watching this, I'm like just some guy like talking, and I'm just pontificating, and then somebody watching this will be like, dude, like, why was I listening to this fool self-indulgently ramble for so long? I think really, like, somebody's watching my thing, that really the main things that are useful are that, like, there's mindfulness. Mindfulness is a good thing. And then, you know, setting a timer or live streaming can be a good thing. ChatGPT, Reddit, and YouTube Shorts can help you learn anything. And if you just, like, every day, if you ask, like, what's a problem I encountered in these different things that I do throughout the day, and what are some of the best methods that other people have figured out how to do those things, you can use Reddit or ChatGPT or YouTube for that. What else? I don't know. Cardio can. I don't know. That's pretty much it. And so, like, I don't know. You probably shouldn't like watch me. You probably shouldn't just. I guess people are free to do whatever, but like, Just that's my general thinking for the last few days. Is I think a lot of people, myself, actually I can just ask ChatGPT, but for sure in my life, there's been all these times where I was listening to some guy, and I thought that like they're talking for some reason. They must have something to say, but then it's like, oh, that was just some guy talking for some reason. Like I should have just been talking. I should have just been like thinking for myself. And so, what's the point? I think that's true also. And I'm saying that's true in my case. I'm saying like I'm just some fool talking. Like you could like talk. You could just ask yourself stuff. You could just say. So what's the point? Just I hope I don't like waste your time. And I just saying like really, I could waste like a lot of people's time, and I'm wasting a lot of my own time. But really like I think the only useful things I really have are probably like mindfulness is good. CBT therapy, which basically is the idea that like there's 3 positive counter thoughts to any negative counter thought, or a negative thought can be replaced by 3 positive counter thoughts. What else? I think drugs and alcohol have generally been bad. I should not do those. What else? That's it. Live streaming can be a good way to get rid of loneliness. I like cardio, but like a lot of people, they don't. Elon Musk doesn't exercise at all, and he's like perfectly fine. And that's it. I'm just pontificating. I'm just mostly making these videos because I want to get rid of loneliness. But I don't even really want like followers. I'm not trying to necessarily be like a YouTube star or something like that. If I make this video, I sort of get rid of loneliness. But I don't really have like a lot of stuff to say. I'm just there's like smarter, more entertaining, more useful people who can probably do better versions of pretty much everything I'm doing in a more concise, professional way that's more considerate of people's time. And so I would encourage you to like probably like look for those. Like just there's some. I think that's my general eureka idea from the last 2 days. Is I think everybody in the world, they're regularly going to some guy or some source, and they just don't know that there's like better deals, better sources, better spouses, better teachers, better leaders, better bosses, and they're just not connected with them. And they're going to realize that after 10 years, they're like, oh, that was just some guy. There was a better guy and many better guys that I should have gone, that I just didn't know. And so that's my general conclusion. It's like, it's good to think for yourself and just think like, what else is like out there? What else, what other sources might I go to for this thing that I'm doing? But it's crazy how many people like don't seem to do that. And I'm going to shut up a second. But that's really obvious in my jiu-jitsu gym. When I go to my jiu-jitsu gym, I notice that just like when I was 20, there's some 20-year-old guy who's going to go to this gym, and he's just going to think that that teacher is going to lead him, and he's not going to realize that that teacher was never going to tell him like, dude, there's like, you could just learn way better just by going to the internet and getting connected with like the best teachers in the world who can tell you like way better stuff than I'm saying. And so what's the point? Yeah, that's definitely true. And like ChatGPT, Reddit, and YouTube, just they give you access to the best ways to do everything. So I don't know why anybody's going to any particular teacher anymore. It seems like that's an outdated thing. It seems like any particular teacher, they should just start everything they say by saying like, dude, everything I'm saying, like the internet's got some dudes who are like the best teachers in the world who can tell you like way better. There's a lot of other better methods than everything I'm saying for pretty much everything I'm doing. Really? Yeah. And so, what's the point? But there's probably no free will. So just life is just kind of going the way it's going. You know that's a really weird idea. If there's no free will, then a lot of life is just people squawking. There's just shit. There could be no free will. And if there's no free will, then there's just kind of shit happening. And people are saying like, this is why, like, you should do this or this and this, and meanwhile like nobody has control anyways, and it's just like a stream, and people are saying it works like this and you should, and this is the way to do it, and people are just squawking. Can you substantiate that? Isn't it possible that a lot of top scientists say there's probably no free will? So if there's really no free will, then to some degree everybody's kind of pontificating as though they have control, as though there's reasons why people do stuff that where they could have done something different, but maybe there's just stuff happening. And if there's no free will, a lot of what's happening just kind of involves like a lot of people just squawking. They're squawking. So for sure, some top scientists say there's probably no free will, right? So they say, yeah. So if there's no free will, then a lot of what people are saying is almost kind of ridiculous. The people are saying things as though things that are happening have necessarily to do with what people are saying or thinking, but they might not. A lot of what people are saying might just be like noise that's happening, while the things that are happening in a way that they could not have happened any other way. Is that possible? Can you answer yes or no to my previous question, please?
Your perspective raises some interesting points about the potential implications of a lack of free will. The illusion of agency. If our actions...
Yeah, so if there's no free will, it says yes. So that means that there might not be free will, and there's just people saying like, this is why this happens. But meanwhile, like, it has nothing to do with that shit you're saying. It's just shit happening, and then meanwhile, while shit's happening, that some of that shit happening involves a lot of like, blah 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 blah. Anyway, what's your point, Sean? I don't know. I'm gonna run my dogs. I hope you have a good day.